Assalamu alaikum, and a warm welcome to Oasis Focus on Finance, brought to you in this month of Ramadan. I'm your host, Shafiq Morton. So we move on to our second feature in today's program, in which we talk to wealth managers at Oasis, Ebrahim Rawoot, Mansoor, Naweed, Ashtiker. Assalamu alaikum, gentlemen.
Walaikum salam.
In this segment, we turn to forms of savings, which have been the traditional way of people looking after their money. But in today's age, people are often putting money into banks to keep the money secure or to either have easy access to their accounts.
I think, Shafiq, you're right. There are a number of forms of savings. And we go back into that old age example of money under the mattress or leaving money in the safe. Then you have your check or savings accounts. And then what banks have also now introduced is alternatives, being your call accounts, your fixed deposits, your notice deposits, and your money markets. So there's a whole host of different forms of savings that you could introduce.
Okay, Ebrahim, let's take a closer look at the options that are available to the investor.
Certainly, Shafiq. If you look at the money under the mattress concept, and I sat down hard and long and tried to understand why would people generally leave under the money under the mattress. It must really be for personal satisfaction or emotional satisfaction. So what do people do? They leave money in the under the mattress, they leave money in the safe, so they check it up regularly, they ensure it's there, and then they move on. But really, what is the benefits involved in doing this? There can't be much real benefit.
Ebrahim, I agree totally with you, and I can't see any benefit in an individual keeping money on the mattress or in the safe. I mean, all it brings about is unnecessary risk. One, the risk of that money being stolen. Two, what if the house burns down? Three, you're actually putting your family's well-being at risk, because that invites that negative, the uncertainty of somebody breaking into the house, harming your family. In fact, I don't believe there's any value add, because if we take inflation into account, what you're doing is you're actually destroying your wealth. You're not even maintaining the purchasing power of that money. I mean, what we can do with 1,000 Rand today, in a year's time, we won't be able to do the same thing with that 1,000 Rand.
And thinking about it now as well, Shafiq, this explains why there was always that one room in the house that the domestic was never allowed to clean, or even why some people, or within some families, where somebody had to stay at home while the rest of the family went out on a family function or to a wedding.
Naweed, that certainly can't be a happy situation, sleeping on the money. What about savings and check accounts?
Shafiq, in today's age, in the world that we live in today, it's almost virtually impossible to operate without a savings or a check account. I mean, your salary gets paid into your check account. You've got debit orders that go off. We use internet banking to make payments, your banking app even today to buy airtime or electricity. So there is a place, because it's convenient to use the check account. But what we found is that same uncle that Ebrahim mentioned earlier, he's now taken his cash money from under the mattress and he's put it into a check account or into a savings account. So the benefit to him is that the money it's a safer alternative to the money under the mattress. There's also ease of use. And the other benefit is now the entire family can go on the outing or to the wedding. Nobody's got to stay at home. So
So Shafiq, just to add on to what Naweed has mentioned, we were speaking about savings and check accounts. But what we must understand is, when you speak about return on investment, there's probably probably very little return on your investment. But what we must understand is, the institution that you're leaving the money to, they're taking that money and they're actually lending it to someone else at probably a higher rate. So really the benefit is not to you as the individual, but more to the financial institution. And then also what we need to take into account, and Mansoor mentioned it, there's this concept of inflation, the purchasing power. So if you have no return or very little return on your investment, and inflation at 5 to 6%, you're actually devaluing that money while it's actually lying in that check or savings account.
So gentlemen, essentially what you've said is that inflation really does eat into our money, particularly in the conventional bank account. So how do we go out of this space? What are the other investment alternatives?
Well, Shafiq, there are many fancy adverts in the market space. You mentioned the check and the savings account. We now introduce, that concept of, your call accounts or your money market accounts or your fixed deposits. And if you look at the benefits of these products, they're probably giving you a slightly higher return. So maybe 5%, maybe 6%, maybe 7%. So what it's doing is it's trying to hold up with inflation. So your money is not necessarily devaluing, it's really just trying to maintain the same purchasing power. And then at the same time, you still have that access to money at any point in time.
Absolutely, Ibrahim. Like you said, money in an investment vehicle is probably maintaining your purchasing power, covering inflation, definitely better. And when we refer to money investment accounts, it's probably money that you don't foresee yourself needing in the day-to-day. So it's more investment money, money you're keeping for 2-3 years. You are seeing a higher return than in a savings or check account. But at the end of the day, Shafiq, the income that you're earning from these investments is interest income. And interest income is haram and forbidden in Islam. I've come across many clients where they're using the interest income, or they actually have an arrangement with the bank where they tell the bank that we'll keep it in the money market, we won't earn or accrue any of the interest income, but by doing so, you're not going to charge us any banking fees for any of our other banking products that we do have. I also came across few clients where they actually use the interest income that they're earning from these money markets, fixed deposits, call accounts, and settling accounts such as SARS bills, paying traffic fines, your e-tolls of late, I've heard that's the latest one. I disagree with the notion of them actually utilizing this interest income to settle these accounts, as interest is interest is interest, and it's haram, Shafiq.
Another important point just to highlight, Shafiq, is that any interest income that is earned is taxable. For individuals under the age of 65, the exempt amount is 23,800, and those over the age of 65, it's 34,500 rand. So any interest earned in excess of these amounts is then further taxed at the marginal tax rate of the investor. So it's a further deduction onto the amount that is already earned.
Absolutely, Naweed, because what you're actually doing is you're still reducing, while you might be getting a 5 to 6% return, which means you're just about covering inflation, but because of the tax implications, SARS tax implications on that money, you're again below inflation. So your money is not really maintaining its purchasing power. Another thing we need to consider as Muslims, Shafiq, while you've got your normal government tax, SARS tax that you need to pay, we as Muslims, we are obliged to fulfill one of the pillars of Islam, and that is to pay zakah. That's a further 2.5% of the market value of the amount that you've got in that savings or check account or investment vehicle. Any cash is zakatable if you've got access and control over it over the last 12 months.
So Shafiq, maybe just to add on to what Mansoor and Naweed mentioned, so if you look at these banking products, and there is a time and a place for it, and there's important times and places for these products. But really, if we look at just the value add that they create in terms of sustainable returns and real returns, if you take a very simple example, take R1 million, you leave it in a call account, you leave it in a fixed deposit or a notice deposit. Let's assume you're getting a 5.5% return. So that is 55,000 Rand that you've earned for the year. Now you need to take into account that it's taxable. You need to take into account that you need to pay, you fulfill your obligation of paying your zakat. So really, that 5.5% return that you perceive to receive is actually probably 1.8%. Now incorporate inflation into this equation, you're getting negative returns. So really, while there is a time and a place for these banking products, we need to make sure that we start questioning whether these products are viable long-term solutions.
And of course, gentlemen, we do come to the table with a solution, don't we? What about the landscape of Sharia-centric products?
So Shafiq, you're right. There are a number of participation accounts that's now been brought into the system. They've been operating for a number of years. But they are designed around what is called profit sharing. So generally speaking, so a participation account will operate on a fixed term basis. It will either be for 30 days, for 60 days, 90 days, even as long as a 1 year period. So, and then what you're doing is you're receiving that return for that particular period. But there's a couple of problems. The one is liquidity. So if you decide to break that contract, they will then impose a penalty on you. And the penalty to you is probably the loss of the profit that you were supposed to have received for that remaining period. And because you're in this locking period, liquidity now becomes a problem as well.
So within participation accounts, Ebrahim, are you saying that the rate of return that an individual is actually receiving is dependent on the time frame and how long he's actually planning to lock the money within that participation account?
Absolutely. You know, Shafiq, the shorter the time period, the lower the yield. The longer the time period, the higher the yield.
Thank you, gentlemen, for those points. Let's hold that thought on Sharia products. Time to take a quick break. We'll be back after this.